Great to have you here. Now, Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Abdul Malik Kwekubako, says the bloated mandate of the anti-corruption state institutions like CHRAJ is blurring the lines between what the commission can and cannot look into, thereby allowing corruption and impunity to fester. He's therefore calling for a re-engineering process which will, among others, clearly outline the scope of such bodies. There have been similar calls from civil society groups who argue the remit of CHRAJ makes it incapable of thoroughly dealing with corruption cases. But speaking as the CDD Continue Akwemu lecture on the topic Search for Accountable Governance in the Fourth Republic, Kwekubako outlined a number of interventions that could help deepen accountability of state institutions.
Enhance the capacity of CHRAJ, UOCO, Auditor General, stroke the Audit Service, that's their financial, logistical, and human resources, to carry out their core mandates. Fast track the amendment of Act 550, Public Officers Holders Declaration of Access in terms of verification, access, filing of frequency, coverage, contents of declaration and sanctions. Then upgrading the capacity of parliamentary committees, especially the Committee on Government Assurance, to enable them perform their duties in monitoring, evaluating, and checking the conduct and actions of the executive. This is the last page, Madam. Enforcement of the findings and recommendations of the Auditor General and the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament by prosecuting established cases at the Financial Crimes Court established by the Chief Justice. I had some correspondence here, but I think we've told the story. Amendment of Article 78(1) of the Constitution, which requires the President to appoint a majority of ministers from Parliament. That is, we're talking here of the separation of powers. Amendment to reverse the powers of President to establish ministries as and when the President wishes by subjecting this law to parliamentary approval. This is an APRM panel recommendation in its first report on Ghana. And now you see we have 110 ministers. I support the President's vision, but I had problems with the number. But then a review of Article 108 to provide Parliament with the power to determine or influence its own institutional budget. Parliament is too dependent on the executive when it comes to its financial outlays. Parliament too has to defend its thing item by item, really to the Ministry of Finance. And then a re-engineering of the mandate of CHRAJ to either limit or restrict its scope of powers to investigating human rights issues and corruption, or on one side, you see, the bloated mandate of CHRAJ appears to be a problem. They're dealing with human rights, they are dealing with corruption, they are dealing with all those things. There are people who believe that perhaps we should find ways and means of doing something about that.
Meanwhile, former Justice of the Supreme Court, VC RAC Crab hints time is rife to relook at many of these state institutions and how to position them to ensure efficiency. He's also been urging citizens and groups to keep the courts busy by testing the Constitution.
At the genesis of CHRAJ, I think basically and originally, CHRAJ started as what you call the Ombudsman. And the Ombudsman is a concept which we got from Scandinavia. They have broadened the field of the Ombudsman. So in Scandinavia now, you have Ombudsman for the armed forces. You have Ombudsman for consumers. So probably the time has come when we also have to look at these institutions and see how far we can draw out the divisions and, if possible, have separate people do it. But you have to realize that we're a small country and our resources are not much. So we have to think in terms of if one person can do a lot of things and do it very well, then let us stick to that. And that's what I'll say.
Okay, he's also been talking about citizen movements and individuals going to court and making the courts work a lot more. Are you satisfied so far with some of the marquee cases we've seen in courts, where the Woyome case, for example, Martin Amidu going to court on a one-man mission, and we have other individuals who are also going to court to champion particular corruption cases and trying to find results? Do you think is the way to go, and how do you reckon that some of these individuals and these civil society organizations can be strengthened to pursue this fight?
I am very happy that he has said the Supreme Court should be kept busy. It's something which I myself have been saying all the time. As a lawyer, how else do we build our own jurisprudence if we kept on looking at other places? We have a written constitution, which I'm afraid most people haven't read and most people don't understand. And we ought to test the constitution. And I believe that's what Mr. Baku meant by saying, keep the Supreme Court busy. We must test the constitution.
Now, still on the Continue Akwemu lecture, Dean of School of Information and Communication Studies at the University of Ghana, Professor Audrey Gajekpo noted the media must take advantage of pluralism in the space to champion the promotion of accountability in governance. But she believes this can only happen if the media itself is accountable.
I think that he is right. There's media pluralism, and that creates an opportunity for the media to play a key role in identifying and issues of accountability and bringing it to public notice. And during his lecture, he gave some examples. You know, the media stars. For example, he even talked about William Nyaku's investigations of the Abacha money. And then it's picked up. CHRAJ then goes, maybe citizens will petition CHRAJ, or sometimes it's the media that petitions CHRAJ, in the case of PV or BIN, etc. And then the accountability process is deepened. And I think that that's a role that the media can play. And the media continues to play that role even today. However, I also do think that there are dangers, which he didn't discuss, that we must flag when it comes to the media's role in accountability. And that has to do with the media's own accountability. You know, when you have corrupt media, he talked about a corrupt judiciary. But, you know, when you have corrupt media, you have a problem because, you know, there's a crisis of credibility and they are not able to do some of the things that they are supposed to do. Or sometimes, even when they start, if they are compromised, then they don't finish, to the disappointment of citizens. So the media must continue to play that watchdog role that is expected of the media, particularly in a democracy, and take advantage of the atmosphere and the environment in which we are, the constitutional provisions that allows them to do that. But at the same time, I would say that they themselves need to be accountable.